Richard Feynman said, "Never confuse education with intelligence. You can have a PhD and still be an idiot." What are some real-life examples of this? My wife's stepfather was a chemist who currently has diabetes. One night he went to the ER because his blood sugar was dangerously high. He claimed he was eating well, he normally doesn't, so there's no reason why his blood sugar was high. In his car was a 2-liter bottle of ginger ale mixed in with grape juice. He said that the two cancelled their sugars out and we didn't know what we were talking about because he was a chemist and he knows how to combine things. As someone who works security in a hospital, I can say a good 90% of the doctors there are smart but lack any type of common sense, and sometimes I wonder how they function on a day-to-day basis. Edit. I also forgot to mention I'm almost 2 years in a relationship with a pediatric cardiologist and it's as shocking at home as it is with the ones I work with LMAO, but I can't say it's boring. I worked for a statistician who had a PhD in statistics and was dumb as a post. OTOH, I worked with this really smart guy who happened to have a PhD, and as he said it, all that means is I did the work for a PhD. I have a PhD, and I work with a bunch of PhDs. Basically, a lot of them think that because they succeeded in one area, they are an expert in every other area of life. And they always have strong opinions about everything. I think it's also called a PhD syndrome. Dr. Oz. He really went to Harvard. He really is a university professor. He really did pioneer several cardiac surgery techniques. Also, he promoted hydroxychloroquine to fight COVID after reading about it on the internet. I don't mention the obvious scams that he flogs on his TV show because I don't think he really believes in them. I think it's an act he puts on just to scam gullible people. A doctor telling me my 6-month-old couldn't have strep because she was infant and taking her to the ER because she was getting worse and no urgent cares were open and finding out she had strep. My uncle is smart as fuck. Multiple master's degrees in education and science, constantly wins awards for his teaching and high averages from his students. Tell me why this idiot needed me to remind him how to make ramen several times over? To get a doctorate, you need to know absolutely nothing about a wide range of subjects. My great-uncle is a brilliant engineer but has zero social awareness. If I tell him a joke about, say, dogs, he won't laugh, but he'll tell you about how dogs' evolution mirrors humanity's and how our species are symbiotic or some shit. Then we explain to him that it was a joke, he'll replay it in his mind, and then laugh. Edit. I appreciate all the online diagnoses, but he's absolutely not autistic. British historian David Starkey, he is only a historian in regards to Tudor England, 1485 to 1603. Other than that, he is a complete idiot, especially when it comes to politics. I don't need to listen to you, I have credential. If you aren't willing to consider novel information because of the messenger, sorry, you're an idiot. I have a PhD and I am an idiot in most respects. All it takes to get a PhD is to be really good at or persistent in doing research in one narrow area of study. Neil deGrasse Tyson. It's one of those cases when you're so smart you become stupid. I had a professor for higher mathematics who had real difficulties figuring out how to extract a cup of coffee from the vending machine. Bless him. Peter Duesberg. Molecular biologist who works as a researcher at UC Berkeley and has an otherwise stellar career and well known for his work. Became an AIDS denialist, claiming there's no link between HIV and AIDS. Led countless people down the rabbit hole, including many who were HIV positive. These individuals ended up infecting others and refusing antiretroviral therapies. This included an AIDS denialist activist named Christine Majori who infected her infant through breastfeeding thinking, hey, it's not a big deal, it's just HIV, it doesn't cause AIDS. I know many people in the science field that conduct double-blind randomized controlled experiments in the lab and then go home and check their horoscopes. Dr. Ben Carson, one of the most skilled neurosurgeons alive, thinking that the Egyptian pyramids were used to store grain. I work with medical doctors all the time for work. Doctors are some of the dumbest smart people I have ever met. My ex had a real lack of knowledge and common sense when it came to children. She's currently completing her PhD in biochemistry and molecular biology. She was confused though when I said I couldn't go out after putting my toddler to bed as I had no one to babysit. In her mind, once my daughter was asleep she no longer needed anyone here to take care of her. I chalked it up to cultural differences and never being around children. Eventually though our opinions on raising kids differed too much and I had to end things for my daughter's sake. Not quite PhD. But I was at a party, in the UK, full of med students and stereotypically everyone was off their face drunk. Well, some guy fell over and broke his collarbone and immediately got rushed by a dozen of them all fussing and asking him the same questions over and going through the checklist. Half an hour later and he's still on the couch in pain and I go in to ask if anybody knows why the ambulance is taking so long. Nobody had an answer because nobody had called one. A party full of medical students hadn't called an ambulance or made any transport arrangements for a guy in severe pain with a broken clavicle. Idiots.